The rain came down like frozen needles against her skin, each drop a reminder that she didn't belong here. Didn't belong anywhere. Elena pressed her back against the wet bark of an ancient pine, her breath coming in ragged gasps that fogged in the bitter mountain air. Blood seeped through the torn fabric of her dress, the same silver gown she'd worn to the wedding just hours ago. The wedding where she'd sat alone at the back, watching her former packmates celebrate a union that should have included her. Where whispers had followed her like shadows. Where eyes had turned away the moment she'd tried to meet them. Now she was running. Again. Always running. The forest around her was alive with sounds that made her wolf stir restlessly beneath her skin. Branches snapping. Low growls carried on the wind. They were hunting her, and they were getting closer. The Blackthorn pack didn't forgive. They didn't forget. And they certainly didn't let outcasts slip away into the night without consequences. Her hands trembled as she pressed them against the tree, trying to steady herself. Trying to remember how to breathe. The cold was seeping into her bones now, but it wasn't just the November storm that made her shiver. It was fear. Raw and primal and honest. The kind of fear that comes when you know your prey. But beneath that fear, something else stirred. Something that had been sleeping inside her since the day they'd cast her out. Since the day they'd called her cursed. Dangerous. Unnatural. Heat bloomed in her chest, spreading outward like liquid fire. Her fingertips began to glow with a faint silver light that had nothing to do with the moon hidden behind storm clouds. She gasped and clenched her fists, forcing it down, forcing it back. Not now. Not here. She couldn't lose control. Not again. The last time the silver flame had erupted from her, 3-pack elders had been burned. Not killed, but marked. Scarred. And in a world where physical perfection meant everything to shifters, scars were unforgivable. Especially scars that wouldn't heal. Thunder rolled across the mountains, and Elena pushed away from the tree. She had to keep moving. Had to put distance between herself and the wolves tracking her scent through the downpour. Her feet were numb inside her ruined heels, but she kicked them off and ran barefoot across the forest floor, feeling every rock and root dig into her skin. The pain kept her grounded, kept her human. Behind her, a howl split the night. Then another. They were closing in. Her lungs burned. Her vision blurred with rain and tears she refused to acknowledge. Where could she go? The nearest town was 15 miles through treacherous terrain. The other packs in the region had already been warned about her. She was alone in every way that mattered. The ground suddenly gave way beneath her feet. Elena cried out as she tumbled down a steep embankment, branches tearing at her skin, stones bruising her ribs. She landed hard at the bottom, the impact driving the air from her lungs. For a moment, she couldn't move. Couldn't think. Could only lie there in the mud and pine needles, staring up at the storm-darkened sky. Get up. Get up. Get up. But her body wouldn't obey. She'd pushed too hard, run too far. The adrenaline that had carried her this far was fading, leaving only exhaustion and the bitter taste of defeat. She closed her eyes, just for a moment. Just to catch her breath. That's when she felt it. A presence. Powerful enough to make the air itself feel heavy. Her eyes snapped open, and her wolf surged forward with a warning growl that died in her throat. He stood at the top of the embankment, silhouetted against the storm. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Utterly still. Watching her. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. She tried to push herself up, but her arms gave out. She was defenseless. Exposed. At the mercy of whoever, whatever, had found her. The figure descended the slope with an ease that spoke of supernatural grace. As he drew closer, lightning flashed, and for one brilliant second, she saw his face. Sharp features. Dark hair plastered to his skull by the rain. Eyes that gleamed amber even in the darkness. And an expression that held no pity, no disgust. Only a fierce, burning intensity that stole what little breath she had left. He crouched beside her, and his scent hit her like a physical force. Pine and smoke and something wild that made her wolf whimper in confusion. Not submission. Not challenge. Something else entirely. Elena. His voice was rough, like gravel and whiskey. Like he'd been calling her name for years and had finally found her. She stared at him, shock cutting through her fear. How do you? I know exactly who you are. He reached out and she flinched. But his hand was gentle as he brushed wet hair from her face, his touch leaving trails of heat on her frozen skin. I've been looking for you. Why? The word came out broken. Desperate. His jaw tightened. For a moment, something that looked like pain flickered in those amber eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by determination. Because you're mine to protect. Whether you know it yet or not. Before she could respond, before she could process those impossible words, the howls erupted again. Closer now. So much closer. The stranger's head snapped up, and the growl that rumbled from his chest was like nothing Elena had ever heard. It was dominance made audible. Power given voice. The kind of sound that made every wolf within hearing distance stop and reconsider their choices. Can you stand? He asked, his eyes still fixed on the forest above them. I can't. He looked back at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. Yes, you can. You've been running on broken ribs and torn feet for the last hour. You can stand. How did he know that? But there was no time for questions. He stood and offered his hand. Elena stared at it, her mind screaming warnings. She didn't know this man. Didn't know what he wanted from her. Every instinct told her to be careful, to protect herself, to never trust a strange wolf in the dark. Yet when she looked into his eyes, she saw something that terrified her more than the pack hunting her through the storm. She saw recognition. Like he'd been searching for her across lifetimes. Like finding her here, broken and bleeding in the mud, was exactly where he'd expected her to be. Please, Elena. His voice softened, just a fraction. Let me help you. The howls were right on top of them now. She could hear the undergrowth thrashing as multiple wolves charged through the forest. Elena grabbed his hand. The moment their skin touched, electricity arced between them. Silver light erupted from her palm, and for a heartbeat, she saw his eyes widen. Saw him register what she was. What she could do. But he didn't let go. Instead, he pulled her to her feet and into his chest in one smooth motion. His arm came around her waist, solid and warm, holding her upright when her legs threatened to give out. Hold on to me, he commanded. What are you? Trust me. Before the words finished leaving his lips, he moved. And it wasn't running. It was something else. Something that blurred the world around them until the forest became streaks of green and brown. Until the rain felt like mist on her face instead of frozen needles. Elena's fingers dug into his shoulders, her face pressed against his neck. His heart beat steady and strong beneath her ear, a counterpoint to her own frantic rhythm. She should have been terrified. Should have been fighting to get free. But wrapped in his arms, moving faster than any wolf should be able to move, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 long years. Safe. The howls faded behind them, swallowed by distance and storm. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time felt liquid in his embrace. Finally, the world slowed. Solidified. He came to a stop beneath the shelter of a massive rock overhang, where the rain couldn't reach and the wind was just a whisper. He set her down carefully, his hands lingering on her waist to make sure she was steady. Elena swayed, her legs weak, her mind spinning. She looked up at him, this stranger who knew her name, who'd found her in the dark, who'd spirited her away from certain death. Who are you? She whispered. He stepped back, putting distance between them, though his eyes never left her face. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of pack law, of ancient tradition, of bonds that couldn't be broken. My name is Damon. He paused, and something that looked like vulnerability flashed across his features. Alpha of the Silvercrest Pack. And whether you believe it or not, whether you want it or not, his amber eyes blazed in the darkness. You're my fated mate. Before you dive deeper into the story, before you let Elena and Damon's fate consume you the way it's about to consume them, hit that subscribe button for Cindy's Wolfheart stories. Because this is just the beginning, and you don't want to miss what happens when a cursed outcast discovers she's destined for the most powerful alpha in the realm. When her silver flame meets his unbreakable will. When prophecy and passion collide in ways that will reshape their entire world. Subscribe now. Trust me on this. You'll want to be here for every heartbreaking, soul-burning moment. Now, let's return to Elena, standing in the rain-shadowed darkness, staring at the alpha who just called her his mate. Elena's legs finally gave out. She slumped against the cold stone wall behind her, sliding down until she sat on the rough ground. Her mind was white noise. Static. Nothing made sense. Fated mate. The words echoed in her skull, impossible and terrifying and something else she couldn't name. Wouldn't name. No. The words scraped out of her throat, raw and defiant. That's not possible. Damon remained standing, watching her with an expression that was equal parts patience and barely leashed restraint. I know what you're feeling right now. You don't know anything about what I'm feeling. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware of how torn her dress was. How exposed she was. How vulnerable. This is some kind of trick. Some kind of... I've watched you for 6 months, Elena. The confession dropped between them like a stone into still water. Elena's breath caught. 6 months. That meant... The market in Greystone, she whispered, remembering. There was someone. I felt someone watching me. He nodded, his jaw tight. That was the first time. I'd gone there tracking rumors of a female wolf with silver fire in her veins. A wolf who'd been cast out for powers she couldn't control. His eyes held hers, refusing to let her look away. What I found was you. Counting your coins to buy bread. Living in a basement room that barely had heat. Working 3 jobs just to survive. Shame burned through her chest. He'd seen her like that. Seen her at her lowest. Why didn't you approach me? Because you would have run. His voice gentled. Just like you're thinking about running right now. She was. Every instinct screamed at her to bolt, to put distance between herself and this male who looked at her like she was something precious. Something worth protecting. She didn't know how to handle that. Didn't know how to believe it. You don't understand what I am, she said, her voice breaking. What I can do. The Blackthorn Pack cast me out because I'm dangerous. Because my power is magnificent. The word cut through her self-loathing like a blade. Damon moved then, crossing the small space to crouch in front of her. Not touching. Not crowding. But close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his amber eyes. Close enough to feel the heat radiating from his body. What you are isn't a curse, Elena. It's destiny. And the fact that your former pack was too blind and too afraid to see that? That's their failure. Not yours. Tears burned her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. You don't know what you're talking about. I hurt people. I scarred. You defended yourself against elders who tried to force you into submission. His voice hardened. I know what happened that night. I know they cornered you in the pack house. Told you that you'd either suppress your power permanently through blood binding or you'd be exiled. I know you refused. And when they tried to take your choice by force. He paused, and his eyes blazed with an anger that wasn't directed at her. You fought back. As you had every right to do. Elena stared at him. How do you know all this? Because I made it my business to know everything about you. He sat back on his heels, giving her space. The moment I felt the mate bond snap into place, the moment I knew you were mine, I started digging. I talked to wolves who'd left Blackthorn before you. Found witnesses who saw what really happened. Built a case that would stand before the High Council if needed. Why would you do that? The question came out barely louder than a whisper. You don't even know me. I know enough. His hand lifted, hovering near her face, asking permission. When she didn't pull away, his fingers brushed her cheek, catching a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. I know you're brave. That you'd rather live alone and afraid than submit to a pack that wanted to break you. I know you're strong. That you've survived 3 years of exile when most wolves would have gone feral from isolation. And I know. His thumb traced her lower lip, and heat pooled low in her belly. I know that every night for the last 6 months, I've dreamed of silver fire and a woman with eyes that hold galaxies. The words should have sounded like poetry. Like the kind of flowery nonsense alphas used to seduce naive females. But there was nothing practiced about the way Damon spoke. Nothing smooth. His voice was rough, almost angry, like the truth was being dragged out of him against his will. I didn't want this, he admitted, his hand dropping away. Didn't want a mate. Didn't want the complications and the vulnerability that comes with it. I'd planned to lead Silvercrest alone. Strong. Unattached. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Then I saw you in that market, and every plan I'd ever made went up in smoke. Because you looked at me right through me, and I knew. I knew I'd follow you anywhere. Protect you from anything. Burn down the whole goddamn world if it meant keeping you safe. Elena couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The mate bond, if that's what this was, thrummed between them like a living thing. She could feel his emotions bleeding through it. The fierce protectiveness. The desire. The fear that she'd reject him. Reject this. I can't be your mate, she whispered. I can't be anyone's mate. I'm broken, Damon. You're perfect. The words were a growl. A command. And I'm not asking you to accept the bond tonight. I'm not asking you to trust me with anything more than your safety. But Elena. He leaned forward, his forehead nearly touching hers. Let me get you somewhere warm. Somewhere you can heal. Let me prove that not every pack is like Blackthorn. That not every alpha will try to chain you. She wanted to say no. Wanted to push him away and run back into the storm, because at least the storm made sense. At least the cold and the fear were familiar. But she was so tired of running. So tired of being alone. And when she looked into Damon's eyes, she saw something that terrified and tempted her in equal measure. Hope. One night, she heard herself say, I'll stay for one night. Then I'm gone. Something that looked like pain flickered across his face, but he nodded. One night. That's all I'm asking. Liar, her wolf whispered. He's asking for everything. And so are you. Damon stood and offered his hand again. This time, when Elena took it, the silver flame stayed dormant. Controlled. As if even her power recognized that this male wasn't a threat. That he was something else entirely. He pulled her to her feet, his grip steady and sure. Can you walk? Or should I carry you? The question was practical, not mocking. But Elena's pride flared anyway. I can walk. Stubborn. There was approval in his voice. Maybe even admiration. Good. You'll need that where we're going. Where are we going? Silvercrest territory. My pack. He glanced at her, gauging her reaction. But not to the main compound. Not yet. There's a cabin about 2 miles from here. It's warded. Protected. No one can find it unless I want them to. A secret cabin in the woods with a strange alpha who claimed she was his fated mate. Elena's rational mind screamed that this was a trap. A setup. Another male trying to use her for her power or destroy her for it. But when Damon's fingers tightened around hers, sending warmth up her arm, her wolf hummed in contentment. In recognition. And for the first time in 3 years, Elena chose to listen to her wolf instead of her fear. Lead the way, she said softly. The smile that curved his lips was small but devastating. Stay close. And if you feel your power rising, don't fight it. I can handle the heat. Then he led her out into the rain, their hands still linked, and Elena followed the alpha who'd been watching her in the dark. Who'd been waiting for the right moment to save her. Who looked at her like she was worth saving. The cabin appeared through the trees like something from a dream. Small. Rustic. With smoke curling from a stone chimney and warm light glowing in the windows. Damon had moved them through the forest with that same supernatural speed, and Elena's mind was still reeling from the sensation of it. From the way the world had blurred and reformed around them. From the way his arms had felt like home. He released her hand to unlock the door, and the loss of contact made her shiver. Or maybe that was just the cold finally catching up with her. Her dress was plastered to her skin, and she couldn't feel her feet anymore. Inside, Damon ordered, pushing the door open and gesturing for her to enter. The warmth hit her like a wall. Elena stumbled across the threshold, her legs suddenly weak now that safety was real and tangible. The cabin was one large room with exposed beams and a fire crackling in the hearth. A bed covered in furs occupied one corner. A small kitchen lined another wall. It was simple, functional, and the most beautiful thing she'd seen in years. Behind her, Damon locked the door and drew symbols in the air. Elena felt the wards snap into place, ancient magic that would hide this place from any wolf who meant her harm. The sheer power it took to cast such protections made her wolf whimper in awe. "Bathrooms through there," he said, pointing to a door she hadn't noticed. "Hot water. Clean towels. There's a robe hanging on the back of the door." His eyes traveled over her, clinical and assessing. "Alpha, not male. You need to get warm before hypothermia sets in." Elena nodded, too exhausted to argue. She made it 3 steps before her vision swam. Damon caught her before she hit the floor, swinging her up into his arms with easy strength. "I can walk," she protested weakly. Clearly. But there was no mockery in his tone. Only concern. He carried her to the bathroom and set her down gently on the closed toilet lid. "Can you manage from here? Or do you need?" "I'm fine." The words came out sharper than she intended. "I don't need help." Damon studied her for a long moment, and Elena had the uncomfortable feeling that he could see right through her bravado to the terrified girl underneath. But he just nodded. "Call out if you need me. I'll be right outside the door." Then he left, closing the door softly behind him, and Elena was alone. Her reflection in the mirror stopped her cold. She barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Wild hair hung entangled, muddy ropes around a face that was too pale, too gaunt. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Blood and dirt streaked her skin. The silver dress that had seemed so beautiful in the thrift store was torn beyond repair, hanging off her shoulders in shreds. She looked like exactly what she was. A survivor. A fighter. Someone who'd been beaten down by life and refused to stay down. Silver light flickered across her reflection, and Elena looked down at her hands. The familiar glow pulsed just beneath her skin, responding to her emotions. To the shame and anger and bone-deep exhaustion that filled her. This was why Blackthorn had cast her out. Why her own mother had turned her back. Why no pack would take her in. The silver flame wasn't natural. Wasn't normal shifter magic. It was something else. Something that had manifested on her 16th birthday and had been growing stronger ever since. The elders had called it an abomination. A sign of tainted blood. They demanded she undergo the blood binding. A ritual that would sever her connection to her power permanently. It would have worked. But it also would have crippled her wolf. Left her half alive. A shell. So she'd refused. And when they tried to force her, Elena closed her eyes, but she could still see it. Still feel it. The 3 elders surrounding her in the ritual room. Their hands glowing with pack magic meant to hold her down. The terror that had exploded in her chest. And then the silver flame erupting outward in a wave of heat and light that had marked all 3 of them with burns that would never fade. She'd run that night. Hadn't even packed a bag. Just shifted and ran until her paws were bloody and her lungs burned. The pack had declared her exile at dawn. Her mother, her own mother, had signed the decree. 3 years ago. She'd been 20 years old. Just a girl. Now she was 23 and felt 100. A soft knock on the door made her jump. "Elena? You've been in there for 10 minutes without starting the water. Talk to me." Damon's voice was gentle but firm. The voice of someone who wouldn't be dismissed. "I'm fine," she called back, but her voice cracked on the words. Silence. "Then, I'm going to count to 30. If I don't hear the shower running by then, I'm coming in." Elena wanted to tell him to go to hell. Wanted to snap that she didn't need his concern or his orders. But the truth was, she was frozen. paralyzed by memories and exhaustion, and the surreal reality of everything that had happened in the last few hours. At 20, the shower hissed to life. She'd forced herself to move, to peel the ruined dress from her body, to step under the spray of gloriously hot water. And then, finally, she let herself break. The sobs came from somewhere deep inside. Somewhere she'd locked away years ago. They tore through her chest like claws, ripping open wounds she'd thought had scarred over. She pressed her hands against the tile wall and cried for the girl she'd been. For the life she'd lost. For the family who'd turned their backs. For 3 years of loneliness and fear and fighting just to survive. The water washed it all away. The dirt. The blood. The tears. By the time Elena shut off the spray, she felt hollow. Empty. But also, strangely, lighter. As if something had loosened in her chest. Something that had been wound too tight for too long. She dried off with a towel that was softer than anything she'd touched in years. The robe Damon had mentioned was thick and warm, smelling of pine and smoke. Smelling like him. She wrapped herself in it and tried not to notice how comforting that was. When she finally emerged from the bathroom, Damon was waiting. He'd changed into dry clothes, dark jeans, and a Henley that stretched across his shoulders in a way that made her mouth go dry. He looked up from where he'd been building up the fire, and his eyes swept over her, checking for injuries with an intensity that made her skin heat. "Better?" he asked. "Warmer, at least." She hovered near the bathroom door, unsure what to do. Where to go? What happened now? Damon stood and moved to the kitchen area. "When's the last time you ate?" Elena tried to remember. There'd been stale bread that morning. Or had that been yesterday morning? Time had gotten strange after she'd fled the wedding. "I don't know." His jaw tightened, but he didn't comment. Just started pulling food from the cabinets and refrigerator. Within minutes, he'd laid out cheese, bread, cold meat, and fruit on the small table. Simple food. But Elena's stomach clenched with hunger at the sight of it. "Sit," Damon said, pulling out a chair. "Eat slowly. Your body's in shock." This time, she didn't argue. She sat and ate, forcing herself to take small bites even though she wanted to devour everything in sight. Damon sat across from her, not eating, just watching, making sure she was okay. "Why the wedding?" he asked after a while. "Why did you go back to Blackthorn?" Elena swallowed hard. "Sarah. She was my best friend before everything happened. She sent me an invitation. I thought maybe." She laughed bitterly. "I thought maybe she still cared. That maybe I'd see her get married and it would be like old times. Just for a moment." "What happened?" She wouldn't even look at me. The words tasted like ash. None of them would. I sat in the back alone and they all pretended I didn't exist. Like I was a ghost. Then after the ceremony, Beta Marcus told me I needed to leave. That my presence was upsetting the pack. Tainting their celebration. Damon's hands clenched into fists on the table. Upsetting them. He said if I didn't leave voluntarily, they'd make me leave. So I ran. Again. She looked up at him, needing him to understand. "I'm good at running. You're good at surviving," he corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Elena pushed the food away, her appetite gone. "Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like I've just been existing. Moving from town to town, job to job, room to room. Never staying anywhere long enough to matter. Never letting anyone get close enough to." She trailed off, unable to finish. "Close enough to hurt you." She nodded, throat tight. Damon was quiet for a moment. Then he reached across the table, palm up, offering. "Tell me about your power." About the silver flame. Every instinct screamed at her to deflect. To shut down. But something about the way he asked, curious, not afraid, made her want to answer. Made her want him to know. "I don't know what it is," she admitted. "It appeared when I shifted for the first time. Most wolves just get enhanced strength, speed, healing. But I got this." She held up her hand, and the silver light responded, dancing across her fingers like living starlight. "The pack healers tested me. Said my bloodline was pure. No mixing with witches or fae. But the flame." She watched it flicker and swirl. It doesn't match anything in the archives. Doesn't match any known wolf magic. How does it feel? Damon asked softly. When you use it? No one had ever asked her that. They'd asked what it could do, how dangerous it was, but never how it felt to her. Like I'm touching something ancient, she whispered. Something that's been sleeping in my blood for generations, just waiting to wake up. When I let it free, it's like... She struggled for the words. Like I'm more than just me. Like I'm connected to something vast and powerful and old. Your ancestors. Elena looked up sharply. What? Damon's eyes held hers, and she saw recognition in them. Understanding. The silver flame isn't a mutation, Elena. It's a gift. A legacy. And if I'm right about what you are, where you come from. He stood and moved to a shelf near the bed, pulling down an old leather-bound book. We need to talk about the Mufuri bloodline. The name sent a shockwave through her system. Her wolf surged forward with a howl of recognition that Elena felt in her bones. The Mufuri line was erased, she said, voice shaking. 300 years ago. The entire pack was slaughtered. Most of them. Damon returned to the table and opened the book, revealing pages filled with old script and faded drawings. But a few survived. Scattered. Went into hiding. Changed their names. Diluted their bloodline by mating with ordinary wolves, hoping the power would fade. He looked up at her. It didn't fade, Elena. It went dormant. Waiting for the right moment. The right generation. You're saying I'm... She couldn't even voice it. I'm saying you're the first full manifestation of Mufuri power in 3 centuries. And that terrifies every pack in the realm, because they all remember what the Mufuri witches could do. His finger traced a drawing in the book, a woman wreathed in silver flames, standing atop a mountain with wolves bowing at her feet. They could command fire, read minds, bend wills. Some say they could even touch the moon herself. Elena stared at the drawing. At the woman who could have been her reflection. If this is true, if I really am Mufuri, then why didn't my mother tell me? Why did Blackthorn treat me like an abomination instead of... Because they were afraid. Damon's voice hardened. Because power like yours threatens the established order. Threatens alphas who rule through strength and dominance alone. If word got out that a Mufuri had awakened, every pack would either try to kill you or control you. Then why are you telling me this? The question burst out of her. Why help me at all? If I'm that dangerous. Because you're not dangerous. He moved around the table, kneeling in front of her chair so their eyes were level. Your power is dangerous when you're afraid. When you're cornered. When you think you have to fight alone. But with the right training, the right support. His hand came up, cupping her face. You could be magnificent. The silver flame rose between them, responding to his touch, to his words. It wrapped around his wrist like a living thing, but he didn't flinch. Didn't pull away. Just let it dance across his skin. How are you doing that? Elena breathed. How are you not burned? Because I'm your mate. His thumb stroked her cheek. Your power recognizes me. Knows I would never hurt you. And on some level, Elena, you know it too. That's why you haven't incinerated me yet. She wanted to deny it. Wanted to pull away. But the truth was blazing between them, as bright as the silver flame. The mate bond was real. And it was pulling them together with a force that terrified her. I don't know how to be someone's mate, she whispered. I don't know how to trust. How to? Then we'll learn together. Damon's forehead rested against hers. Because I don't know how to be a mate either. Don't know how to be soft or gentle or any of the things you probably need. All I know is that when I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for. Worth protecting. Worth choosing every single day. Tears slipped down her cheeks again, but this time they weren't born from pain. They were born from something fragile and terrifying and beautiful. Hope. One day at a time, she asked. One day at a time, he agreed. Then he stood and offered his hand. But tonight, you need rest. Real rest. In a bed that's safe and warm. Elena looked at the large bed covered in furs. Then at Damon. Where will you? I'll take the floor. Or the chair by the fire. He seemed to realize what she was thinking and smiled slightly. I'm not pushing you into anything, Elena. When you come to my bed, it'll be because you choose it. Not because you have nowhere else to go. The words settled something inside her, made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. She took his hand and let him guide her to the bed. The furs were soft and warm, and when she sank into them, her body finally surrendered to exhaustion. Damon pulled a blanket over her, his touch gentle. Sleep, he murmured. I'll keep watch. Nothing will hurt you here. Elena's eyes were already closing, but she managed to whisper, thank you. She thought she felt lips brush her forehead. Thought she heard him say, always. But by then, sleep was pulling her under, into dreams of silver flames and amber eyes and a destiny she couldn't quite believe was hers. Elena woke to sunlight streaming through the cabin windows and the smell of coffee brewing. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory crashed back, the wedding, the chase, Damon. The impossible claim that she was his fated mate. She sat up slowly, her body aching in a dozen places, but no longer screaming in agony. Shifter healing had worked its magic while she slept. The cuts on her feet were closed. The bruises on her ribs were fading to yellow. She felt almost human again. Damon stood at the stove, his back to her, cooking something that made her stomach growl. He'd heard her wake, of course he had, but he didn't turn around immediately, giving her space, letting her adjust. Morning, he said finally, glancing over his shoulder. How do you feel? Like I got thrown down a mountain and chased by an angry pack. She pushed the blankets aside and stood, grateful that her legs were steady. So, better than yesterday. A smile tugged at his lips. There's coffee. And I made eggs. Bacon. Toast. You need to eat. Elena moved to the table, hyper-aware of how she looked in just his robe with her hair a tangled mess. But Damon didn't seem to notice, or if he did, the way his eyes darkened suggested he liked what he saw. The thought sent heat through her that had nothing to do with the silver flame. They ate in comfortable silence, and Elena marveled at how easy it felt. How natural. With Blackthorn, every meal had been a test. A performance. But here, with Damon, she could just be. We need to talk about what happens next, Damon said, pushing his empty plate aside. You said one night. That night is over. Elena's chest tightened. I should go. I've stayed too long already. Put you at risk. Elena. He waited until she looked at him. I'm not asking you to leave. I'm asking what you want. Do you want to keep running? Keep hiding? Or... He paused, and she could see him choosing his words carefully. Or do you want to find out what you really are? What you're capable of? You mean the Mufury thing. I mean understanding your power. Learning to control it. Discovering why it chose you to awaken after 3 centuries of silence. He leaned forward. There's a place I need to take you. Somewhere that might have answers. Suspicion flickered through her. Where? The Lunar Shrine. It's deep in Silvercrest territory, in a part of the forest we keep sacred and protected. No one goes there without the Alpha's permission. His eyes held hers. Legend says it was built by the Mufury pack before they were destroyed. That it holds records, prophecies, knowledge that was never meant to be lost. Elena's wolf stirred with interest, but her human side was cautious. And you think these records will tell me about my power? I think they'll tell you why you have it. Why now? And what you're meant to do with it. Damon's expression grew serious. But I won't lie to you, Elena. If we go there, if we start uncovering these truths, there's no going back. You can't unknow what you learn. And knowledge like this, it comes with responsibility. With expectations. With danger. That too. He didn't try to sugarcoat it. If word gets out that a Mufury has awakened, that she's been to the shrine, that she might be fulfilling some ancient prophecy. He shook his head. Every pack with an agenda will come looking for you. Some to recruit you. Some to eliminate you. Some to use you. Then maybe I should just keep running. The words tasted bitter, but they were practical. Safe. You could. Damon's hand reached across the table, covering hers. But is that really living? Or is it just surviving? The question hit her like a physical blow. Wasn't that what she'd been asking herself just last night? Whether there was any difference between existence and life. What if I'm not who you think I am? She whispered. What if I go to this shrine and find out I'm just broken? Not some prophesied savior, just a wolf with a power that shouldn't exist. Then you'll still be mine. The words were fierce. Final. Prophecy or no prophecy. Fury or not. You'll still be the woman who survived 3 years alone. Who refused to let them break her. Who glows with silver fire and looks at me like I might be worth trusting. His fingers tightened around hers. And I'll still be the alpha who would burn down the world to keep you safe. Elena's breath caught. The mate bond hummed between them, warm and insistent, pulling her toward him like gravity. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this wasn't some elaborate trap or misunderstanding. But more than that, she wanted answers. Wanted to know why she was different. Why the silver flame had chosen her. What it meant. Okay, she heard herself say. Take me to the shrine. Relief flashed across Damon's face, quickly masked. He stood and offered his hand. Get dressed. There's clothes in the trunk by the bed. They'll be too big, but they're clean. We leave in 20 minutes. Elena nodded and moved to the trunk. Inside, she found jeans, a soft sweater, and a jacket that smelled like Damon. She dressed quickly, rolling up sleeves and cuffs, trying not to think about how intimate it felt to wear his clothes. How much her wolf purred at being surrounded by his scent. When she emerged, Damon was waiting by the door. He'd changed into hiking gear and had a pack slung over his shoulder. His eyes traveled over her, and something possessive and approving flickered in their depths. Ready? He asked. No. Yes. Maybe. Elena just nodded. They left the cabin and plunged into the forest. The morning was crisp and clear, the storm from the night before leaving everything washed clean and vibrant. Damon led her along paths that seemed to appear only when he walked them, through trees that grew so close together no ordinary wolf should have been able to pass. But the forest parted for him, recognized him, and by extension, it recognized her. The trees are moving, Elena whispered, watching branches shift to create a corridor ahead. Silvercrest territory is old, Damon explained. Wild. The land itself has magic woven through it. It responds to the alpha. Protects the pack. He glanced at her. And it should reject you. Should push you out or trap you, since you're not pack. But look. Elena looked down. Flowers were blooming in her footsteps. Small, silver-petaled flowers that hadn't been there a moment ago. The land recognizes you, Damon said softly. Recognizes what you are. It's welcoming you home. Home. The word lodged in her chest, painful and sweet. Elena hadn't had a home in 3 years. Hadn't belonged anywhere. But these trees, this earth, this wild magic, it called to her wolf in a way Blackthorn never had. They walked for an hour, maybe 2. Time felt strange here, like the forest existed in its own pocket of reality. Finally, the trees opened into a clearing, and Elena stopped dead. The lunar shrine rose before her like something from a dream. Not a building, but a structure of standing stones arranged in a perfect circle. Each stone was carved with symbols that glowed faintly silver, pulsing with a rhythm that matched her heartbeat. In the center of the circle stood an altar made of black stone, and behind it, a massive carved relief of the moon in all its phases. Power radiated from the place. Ancient. Primal. It made Elena's skin prickle and her wolf whine in awe. This is it, Damon said unnecessarily. The last remnant of the Fury pack. Elena moved forward as if drawn by invisible threads. The moment she crossed the threshold of the standing stones, the symbols flared bright. The silver flame erupted from her skin in response, wrapping around her arms, her shoulders, her hair. But it didn't hurt. It felt like coming home. Elena. Damon's voice was sharp with warning. Don't fight it. Let it flow. She wanted to pull it back, to lock it down like she'd been doing for years. But something about this place made that impossible. Made hiding feel like a betrayal. So she let go. The silver flame exploded outward in a wave of light and heat. It rushed across the clearing, igniting every carved symbol, filling every etched line with radiance. The stones hummed, a sound that resonated in her bones. And then they began to speak. Not with words, with visions. Elena gasped as images flooded her mind. She saw a pack of wolves wreathed in silver fire, their eyes glowing white. Saw them standing against an enemy she couldn't quite make out, something dark and writhing and wrong. Saw them fall one by one until only a handful remained. Saw those survivors scatter into the world, their flames dimming, their power going dormant. Then she saw herself. Older. Stronger. Standing in this very circle with flames dancing around her like living creatures. And behind her, a pack. Not Blackthorn. Not Silvercrest. Something new. Something that had never existed before. She will rise when the darkness returns. A voice echoed through the clearing, feminine, ancient, speaking directly into Elena's soul. The last daughter of flame. The one who carries the light of the fallen. She will stand between the world and the shadow. She will burn or she will save. There is no middle ground. The vision shattered. Elena fell to her knees on the stone floor, gasping for air. The silver flame receded back into her skin, leaving her shaking and weak. Damon was there immediately, his arms around her, holding her steady. "What did you see?" he asked urgently. "Elena, talk to me." "A prophecy." Her voice was raw. "I saw a prophecy. I'm not just Mufuri. I'm the Mufuri. The one they've been waiting for." She looked up at him, and she knew her eyes were blazing with silver light. "Something's coming, Damon. Something dark. And I'm supposed to stop it." Before he could respond, the altar in the center of the circle began to crack. Light poured through the fissures, and with a sound like breaking glass, the top split open. Inside lay a book. Ancient. Bound in leather that gleamed like moonlight. Elena pulled away from Damon and approached the altar on shaking legs. The book called to her, saying to her blood. She reached out and lifted it, and the moment her fingers touched the cover, knowledge flooded through her. Names. Spells. Histories. Techniques for controlling and amplifying the silver flame. Everything the Mufuri pack had known, preserved in this single tome. Waiting for her. "The Codex of Flame," she whispered, reading the title embossed on the cover in a language she shouldn't understand but did. "This is their legacy. Their power. Everything they were. And now it's yours." Damon stood beside her, his hand on her lower back, grounding her. "But Elena," that voice. What it said about darkness returning. "I don't know what it means." She clutched the book to her chest. "I don't know what I'm supposed to fight or when or how. All I know is..." She looked around the shrine, at the symbols still glowing faintly silver. "I was meant to be here. Meant to find this. My power wasn't an accident or a curse. It was preparation." Preparation for what? War. The word fell between them like a stone. The Mufuri pack didn't just have enemies. They had a purpose. They were guardians. Protectors. And they were killed because they stood against something that wanted to consume the wolf packs. Something that's been sleeping for 300 years. Elena's hands tightened on the book. "And if I'm here, if this power has awakened in me after all this time, it means that thing is waking up too." Damon was silent for a long moment. Then we prepare. We train. We learn everything that book can teach you. And when the darkness comes..." His hand moved to cup her face, his eyes blazing with determination. "We face it together. You barely know me." But even as she said it, Elena knew it was a weak protest. The mate bond was real. The connection between them was real. And whether she'd known him for a day or a decade, she trusted him in a way she'd never trusted anyone. "I know enough." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I know you're brave and stubborn and powerful. I know you've survived things that would have broken most wolves. And I know that whatever's coming, whatever you're meant to face, you're not facing it alone. Not anymore." The silver flame rose between them again, but this time it was gentle. Warm. It wrapped around them both like a blessing, and Elena felt the mate bond settle into place with a rightness that took her breath away. She was Mufuri. She was prophesied. She was meant for something bigger than herself. But she was also just Elena. A girl who'd been hurt and cast out and forgotten. A girl who'd found an alpha willing to stand beside her when the whole world turned away. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For seeing me. For believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Damon's smile was soft and devastating. "Always, Elena. Always." They stood in the shrine for a while longer, surrounded by ancient power and silver light. The codex of flame hummed with knowledge waiting to be unlocked. The prophecy echoed in Elena's mind, both terrifying and exhilarating. Darkness was coming. But for the first time in 3 years, Elena wasn't running from it. She was preparing to face it head-on. With power in her veins, knowledge in her hands, and an alpha at her side who looked at her like she hung the moon. The world didn't know what was coming. But it would learn. They all would. The Mufuri had returned. And this time, she wasn't alone. They stayed at the shrine until the sun reached its zenith, Elena poring over the codex while Damon kept watch. The book was written in Old Tongue, but somehow Elena could read it as easily as if it were English. Her ancestors' knowledge flowing directly into her mind. Teaching her. Preparing her. She learned that the silver flame wasn't just destructive, it could heal, protect, illuminate. She learned techniques for controlling its temperature and intensity. Learned that Mufuri wolves could share their power with their pack, creating bonds that went beyond ordinary pack magic. And she learned about the void. The darkness her ancestors had fought. An entity that fed on wolf magic, corrupting and consuming until nothing remained but emptiness. It had taken the combined power of 3 Mufuri alphas to banish it 300 years ago. They'd given their lives to seal it away, believing their sacrifice would protect future generations. But seals didn't last forever. And if Elena was here, if her power had awakened now, it meant the void was stirring. "We need to go." Damon's voice cut through her concentration. "We've been here too long. Someone will have noticed the shrine's activation." Elena looked up from the codex. "Who?" "My pack. They'll feel the power surge." And if they felt it, his jaw tightened. "Others might have too. We need to get back to the cabin. Regroup. Figure out our next move." She wanted to argue, wanted to stay and absorb every word of the ancient text. But Damon was right. The shrine's awakening would have been impossible to miss for any wolf with even a shred of magical sensitivity. And not everyone would be happy about a Mufuri rising. Elena closed the codex and stood. "Will your pack accept me? Once they know what I am. Some will. Some won't." Damon's honesty was brutal but appreciated. "My beta, Zane, he's loyal. He'll follow my lead. My counsel, though." He shook his head. "They're old guard. Traditional. They believe in strength through dominance, not through magic. They'll see you as a threat to the natural order." "Then maybe I shouldn't go to your pack." "Maybe I should. You're coming with me." The words were alpha command, resonating with power that made her wolf want to submit. "You're my mate, Elena. That makes you their Luna, whether they like it or not. And anyone who challenges that challenges me." The words should have made her feel trapped. Instead, they made her feel protected. Valued. Worth fighting for. They left the shrine, and Elena felt the wards snap back into place behind them, protecting the sacred space until it was needed again. The forest was quieter on the return journey, tense, like it was holding its breath. Waiting. They were halfway back to the cabin when Damon suddenly stopped. His head snapped up, nostrils flaring. Wolves. Coming fast. Elena's heart hammered. Blackthorn. No. Silvercrest. His eyes flashed amber. My wolves. Led by... He swore viciously. Counselor Marcus. This is bad. Before Elena could ask why, wolves burst from the trees. 6 of them, all in human form, all wearing expressions that ranged from hostile to coldly disapproving. The one in front, Marcus, presumably, was older than the others, his hair silver, his face lined with authority and barely concealed disdain. Alpha Damon. His voice was formal. Cold. You've been missed at the pack house. We were concerned. I needed time away. I'm entitled to it. Damon's tone matched the counselor's, Alpha addressing subordinate. But Elena could feel the tension crackling between them. Of course. Marcus's eyes slid to Elena, and disgust flickered in their depths. Though we didn't realize you'd be entertaining guests. Particularly guests of such questionable reputation. Elena's spine straightened. She knew that look. Had seen it 1,000 times in Blackthorn. The look that said she was less than. Unwanted. Dangerous. Careful, Marcus. Damon's voice dropped to a growl. That's your future Luna you're looking at. Shocked silence. Then one of the younger wolves, a female with sharp features, laughed. Luna? Damon, this is the Blackthorn exile. The one with the cursed fire. You can't seriously be considering. I'm not considering anything. The mate bond has chosen. Damon moved to stand partially in front of Elena, protective but not dismissive. Elena is mine. Which makes her pack. She's an abomination. Marcus stepped forward, and power rolled off him. Not alpha power, but council magic. Ancient. Dangerous. We felt the surge from the lunar shrine. Felt it respond to forbidden blood. You've taken her there, haven't you? Given her access to magic that was sealed for a reason. The shrine responded because she's Mufury. Damon's declaration sent another shockwave through the group. She's the awakening the prophecies spoke of. The guardian who rises when. Prophecies are fairy tales told to comfort the weak. Marcus's eyes blazed with contempt. The Mufury pack was destroyed because they grew too powerful. Too arrogant. They believed themselves above the natural order. And this girl. He pointed at Elena like she was something filthy. She carries the same tainted magic that brought ruin to her ancestors. And you would bring that ruin into our pack. The only ruin I see is your short-sighted fear. Damon's power exploded outward, forcing the other wolves back a step. Elena is my mate. That's not up for debate. Not with you. Not with the council. Not with anyone. Then you force us to choose. Marcus's voice was hard. Cold. Final. The council has discussed this possibility. If you insist on binding yourself to this creature, then we invoke the right of challenge. You may be alpha by birth, Damon. But leadership is earned. And we will not follow an alpha who puts his mate's interests above the pack's safety. The right of challenge. Elena had heard of it, an ancient law that allowed pack members to challenge their alpha's authority. Not for the position itself, but for the right to overrule specific decisions. If Marcus won the challenge, he could force Damon to reject the mate bond. Could exile Elena permanently. You would challenge me over this? Damon's voice was dangerously quiet. Over her? We would challenge you to save the pack from repeating history's mistakes. Marcus crossed his arms. Reject her, or face the council in formal challenge at the next full moon. 3 days, Alpha. You have 3 days to choose, her or your pack. Elena's blood went cold. She'd been through this before. Seen what happened when wolves were forced to choose between her and their loyalty. They always chose against her. Always. No. The word burst from her before she could stop it. She stepped around Damon, ignoring his growl of warning. No, I won't let you do this. I won't be the reason he loses his pack. Elena. She looked at Damon, her heart breaking. They're right. I am dangerous. I do bring chaos. And I won't let you sacrifice everything you've built because of some cosmic joke that paired us together. The words tasted like poison, but she forced them out. I reject the mate bond. I reject the claim. I'm leaving. The hell you are. Damon grabbed her arm, spinning her to face him. His eyes blazed with fury and pain. You don't get to make that choice alone. We're mates, Elena. That's not something you can just walk away from. Watch me. She pulled free, silver flame flickering across her skin as emotion threatened her control. I've survived alone for 3 years. I can survive without you. Surviving isn't living. You said that yourself. And dragging you down with me isn't living either. The words came out as a shout, echoing through the forest. I won't be responsible for destroying you. I won't be another name on the list of things the Moo Fury ruined. Wise girl. Marcus's approval was acid. You see the truth clearly. Perhaps you're not as cursed as your bloodline suggests. The condescension in his voice made something snap inside Elena. The silver flame roared to life, engulfing her completely. Power poured through her, wilder than it had ever been, fueled by rage and heartbreak and 3 years of suppressed fury. Don't you dare. Her voice resonated with layered tones, hers and something older, something vast. Don't you dare call me wise for running. For hiding. For accepting that I deserve to be alone. The flame grew brighter, hotter. I am Moo Fury, last daughter of the Guardian line. And I am done being afraid of small-minded wolves who would rather cling to their comfort than face the truth. And what truth is that? Marcus demanded, but there was fear in his voice now. That darkness is coming. That the void your ancestors sealed away is waking. And when it arrives, when it starts consuming wolf after wolf, pack after pack, you'll wish you'd had a Moo Fury on your side. Elena's hands clenched into fists, the flame responding to her will. But I won't be here. Because I'm choosing to leave. Not because you commanded it. Not because I'm afraid. But because I won't force Damon to fight his own people over me. She turned to Damon, and the pain in his eyes nearly broke her. Thank you for one night of feeling safe. For believing in me. For... Her voice cracked. For seeing me. But this is where it ends. Elena, please. Take care of your pack, Alpha. She stepped back, the silver flame wrapping around her like armor. And when the darkness comes, remember I tried to warn you. Then she turned and ran. Shifted mid-stride into a wolf wreathed in silver fire, the codex somehow bound to her in spirit form. She heard Damon roar her name, felt the mate bond screaming in protest. But she didn't stop. Didn't look back. She ran like she'd always run. Alone into the darkness. Because that's what she was good at. That's what she'd always been. Elena ran for hours. Through forests and across streams, putting miles between herself and Silvercrest territory. Between herself and Damon. The mate bond stretched and screamed with every step, a physical pain in her chest that made breathing difficult. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because stopping meant facing what she'd done. What she'd given up. What she'd destroyed before it could destroy her first. Finally, when exhaustion made her limbs shake and the silver flame had burned itself down to embers, she collapsed in a small cave carved into a hillside. Her wolf form melted away, leaving her naked and shivering and more alone than she'd ever been. The codex materialized beside her, somehow bound to her spirit now, responding to her need. She pulled it close, wrapping her arms around it like it could fill the gaping emptiness inside her. You made the right choice, she told herself. You saved him. Saved his pack. Saved yourself from the inevitable rejection that would have come eventually. But the words rang hollow. Because for one brief, shining moment, she'd felt what it was like to be chosen. To be protected. To be seen as something more than dangerous or broken. And walking away from that hurt worse than any exile. She must have dozed, because when awareness returned, the light filtering into the cave had changed. Evening was falling. And she wasn't alone. Damon sat at the cave entrance, his back against the stone, watching her with eyes that held exhaustion and determination in equal measure. He'd brought clothes, another set of his, smelling of pine and smoke. And food. And a blanket. You found me. Her voice was raw from crying, though she didn't remember the tears. Of course I found you. He didn't move toward her, giving her space. You're my mate, Elena. I'll always find you. You should go back. Your pack can wait. He pulled out a thermos and unscrewed the cap. Hot soup. You need to eat. Elena wanted to refuse. Wanted to be strong and independent and all the things she'd told herself she had to be. But she was freezing and starving and her heart was shattered. So she wrapped the blanket around herself and accepted the cup he offered. The soup was warm and rich, settling into her empty stomach like comfort. They sat in silence while she ate, the tension between them thick enough to choke on. I talked to Zane, Damon said finally. My beta. Told him everything. About you, about the prophecy, about Marcus's challenge. Elena's hands tightened on the cup. And? He thinks I'm insane for choosing you over the council's approval. A small smile tugged at Damon's lips. But he also said if you're truly Mufuri, if darkness is really coming, then we're going to need you. That power like yours doesn't awaken without reason. That doesn't solve anything. Marcus can challenge all he wants. He'll lose. Damon's confidence was absolute. But that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to convince you to come back for political reasons or pack strategy. He finally moved, shifting to kneel in front of her. I'm here because watching you run broke something inside me. Because the mate bond isn't just some mystical connection we can ignore. It's real, Elena. And it's destroying us both from the inside out. She could feel it. The bond stretched thin and bleeding, causing them both pain with every breath they took apart. I can't be the reason you lose everything, she whispered. You're not a reason. You're my choice. He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed her cheek, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. Every day I wake up, I choose you. I choose us. That won't change whether you accept it or not. But Elena, his voice dropped, rough with emotion. I need you to choose too. Not because you're afraid. Not because you think you don't deserve it. But because you want it. Want me. Want us. I don't know how to do this. The admission cost her everything. Don't know how to let someone in. How to trust that you won't wake up one day and realize I'm more trouble than I'm worth. Then let me teach you. His other hand came up, framing her face. Let me prove that I'm not going anywhere. That when I say forever, I mean it. Your pack will hate me. Some will. Some already do. But some will love you. Respect you. Follow you. His thumbs traced gentle circles on her cheeks. And the ones who don't? They'll learn. Or they'll leave. But I won't sacrifice you to make them comfortable. Why? The question burst from her, desperate. Why would you risk everything for me? Because when I look at you, I see my future. His voice was raw. Honest. I see strength and fire and a woman who's survived things that would have broken lesser wolves. I see someone worth fighting for. Worth choosing. Worth loving if you'll let me. Love. The word hung between them, terrifying and beautiful. I'm scared, Elena whispered. So am I. The admission surprised her. Terrified, actually. Because I've never felt this way about anyone. Never wanted to protect and possess and cherish someone so completely that it consumes me. His forehead dropped to rest against hers. But I'd rather be terrified with you than empty without you. The silver flame rose between them, but this time it was gentle. Seeking. It wrapped around them both, and Elena gasped as she felt Damon's emotions through the bond. The fierce protectiveness. The desire. The fear that she'd run again. And underneath it all, growing stronger with every moment, the beginning of something that looked a lot like love. I want to trust you, she breathed. Want to believe this is real. Then start here. Start now. His hands slid into her hair, tilting her face up. Stay with me tonight. Not because you have nowhere else to go. Not because you're afraid. But because you want to. Because being here with me feels right. It did feel right. Despite everything. Despite the fear and the doubt and the voice in her head screaming that this was a mistake. Being in his arms felt like coming home. One night, she said, echoing their first agreement. But this time, they both knew it was a lie. This wasn't going to be just one night. It was going to be the first of many. The beginning of something that couldn't be undone. One night, Damon agreed, his lips curving in a smile that made her heart stutter. To start. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. Wasn't careful. It was heat and hunger and 3 years of loneliness crashing into one perfect moment of connection. Elena's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, needing to feel the solid warmth of him against her. The mate bond sang with recognition, flooding her with pleasure that had nothing to do with physical touch and everything to do with souls recognizing their other half. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damon's eyes had gone full wolf. Amber and wild and possessive. Mine, he growled, the word resonating with alpha power. Yours, Elena heard herself say. And for the first time, she meant it. And you're mine. Always. He pulled her into his chest, wrapping his arms around her. I need to tell you something. About my past. About why I never wanted a mate. Elena settled against him, listening to his heartbeat. Tell me. My father was alpha before me. Strong. Dominant. Everything a pack alpha should be. Damon's voice hardened. But he had a mate. My mother. And she was weak. Human. Couldn't shift. Couldn't protect herself. And one day, enemies of the pack used that weakness. They took her. Tortured her. Sent my father pieces of her until he was half mad with grief and rage. Elena's breath caught. What happened? He got her back. But she was broken. Her mind shattered by what they'd done to her. She lived another 5 years, but she wasn't really there. Just a shell. And my father. Damon's arms tightened around Elena. He never recovered. The mate bond that should have been his strength became his greatest weakness. He died defending her from an attack he could have easily survived if he'd been thinking clearly instead of being consumed by fear for her safety. So you decided never to mate. Understanding flooded through her. Never to give anyone that power over you. I swore I'd lead alone. Strong. Uncompromised. His laugh was bitter. Then I saw you in that market and every vow I'd ever made went up in flames. Because you're not weak, Elena. You're not someone I have to protect from the world. You're someone who can stand beside me against it. But what if I'm not strong enough? The fear leaked into her voice. What if when the darkness comes I fail? What if? Then we fail together. He pulled back to look at her, his eyes intense. But I don't believe that. You're Mu Fury, Elena. You carry the power of guardians in your veins. And once you learn to fully control it, once you embrace what you are. His smile was fierce. Gods help anything that stands in your way. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to have that kind of faith in herself. Will you help me? Train me? Every day. His hand traced down her spine, leaving heat in its wake. We'll work through the codex together. Learn everything your ancestors knew. Prepare you for whatever's coming. And your pack? The challenge. We'll face that when the time comes. Together. He kissed her forehead, gentle and tender. But tonight, right now, I just want to hold you. Want to feel you safe in my arms. Want to pretend the world doesn't exist beyond this cave. Elena nodded, burrowing deeper into his embrace. Outside, night had fully fallen. Inside the cave, wrapped in Damon's arms with the mate bond humming contentedly between them, she felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. Tell me something about yourself, Damon murmured, his fingers playing with her hair. Something no one else knows. Elena thought for a moment. I used to dance. Before I shifted. Before everything changed. Ballet. My mother said I was good enough to go professional. What happened? The first time the silver flame appeared, I was mid-performance. Recital night. The most important night of my young life. I was spinning across the stage, and suddenly my hands were glowing. The flame erupted, and I set the curtains on fire. She could still remember the screams, the panic, her mother's horrified face. They put it out quickly. No one was hurt. But after that, she shrugged. My mother stopped taking me to classes. Said it was too dangerous. That I needed to focus on controlling my wolf, not on dancing. Do you miss it? Sometimes. Elena's voice went soft. I miss feeling graceful. Powerful in a way that wasn't frightening. I miss the music and the movement and the sense that my body could create something beautiful instead of just destructive. Damon was quiet for a long moment. Then, dance for me. What? Here. Now. No music. No audience. Just you, letting your body move the way it wants to. His eyes gleamed in the dim light. I want to see the beauty instead of just the power. I can't. Yes, you can. He released her and stood, offering his hand. Trust me. Please. Elena stood on shaking legs, the blanket falling away. She should have felt exposed, vulnerable, dressed in nothing but his oversized shirt. But the way Damon looked at her, like she was precious and powerful and perfect, made her feel brave. She closed her eyes and let her body remember. Let muscle memory take over. And she danced. It wasn't ballet. Not really. It was something wilder. More primal. Her body moved in ways she'd never been taught, guided by instinct and magic. The silver flame rose with her movements, wrapping around her like a partner. Spinning. Leaping. Flowing from one form to another with liquid grace. She danced her pain. Her loneliness. Her fear. And then, as the movements grew stronger, more confident, she danced her hope. Her strength. Her future. When she finally stilled, breathing hard, glowing with silver light, Damon was staring at her with an expression that stole her breath. You're magnificent, he breathed. Absolutely magnificent. Elena's cheeks heated. It wasn't. It was everything. He crossed to her, pulling her against his chest. That's who you are, Elena. Not the scared girl running through the forest. Not the broken exile hiding in basements. You're this. Powerful and graceful and utterly unstoppable. She looked up at him, and something shifted in her chest. The last wall crumbling. The final defense falling away. I see you too, she whispered. I see the alpha who could have had any mate he wanted but chose the cursed outcast. I see the man who'd risk everything to protect someone he barely knows. I see. Her hand pressed over his heart. I see my future. The kiss that followed was different from the first. Slower. Deeper. A promise instead of a question. And when they finally pulled apart, Elena knew with absolute certainty that she'd never run from this man again. He was hers. She was his. And whatever came next, they'd face it together. Stay, Damon murmured against her lips. I'll stay, Elena promised. This time, she meant forever. 3 days passed in a blur of training and connection. Damon had taken Elena to a safe house deeper in his territory, not the cabin, not the pack compound, but somewhere in between. A place where they could work on controlling her power without interference. The codex was proving invaluable. Elena learned to shape the silver flame into weapons, shields, even healing energy. She discovered she could sense other wolves' intentions through their emotional resonance. And most importantly, she learned that her power grew stronger when she was calm, centered, and connected to Damon through the mate bond. The bond itself had deepened over those 3 days. They'd shared meals and stories and quiet moments by the fire. They'd kissed until Elena's lips were swollen and her body ached with want. They hadn't made love, not yet, but the promise of it hung between them, growing more inevitable with every touch. On the morning of the full moon, Damon kissed her forehead and said, "Tonight is the challenge. Marcus will stand before the pack and demand I reject our bond." Elena's stomach clenched. "And you'll fight him." "I'll end him if I have to." There was no hesitation in Damon's voice. "But it won't come to that. Once the pack sees you, sees what you can do, they'll understand." Will they? Elena wasn't so sure. Fear was a powerful motivator. And she was terrifying. "Come with me." Damon took her hand. "Stand beside me before the pack. Let them see their Luna. Let them decide with their eyes open instead of listening to Marcus's fear-mongering." It was a risk. A huge risk. But Elena was tired of hiding. Tired of letting other people's fear dictate her life. "Okay. I'll come." Relief flooded Damon's face. "Thank you. Thank you for trusting me." They spent the day preparing. Damon taught her pack protocols, introduced her to allies via phone, wolves who would support her claim regardless of politics. Zane, the beta, stopped by briefly. He was younger than Elena expected, with easy charisma and sharp intelligence in his eyes. So you're the one causing all this trouble, he said, but his smile was genuine. I hope you're worth it. So do I, Elena admitted. Zane's expression grew serious. Marcus has been rallying support. He's convinced some of the older wolves that you're a threat to pack stability, that your power will attract enemies. He glanced at Damon. He's not entirely wrong. She's stronger than any enemy who comes for her, Damon said fiercely. I know that. You know that. But they need to see it. Zane turned to Elena. Tonight at the gathering, there will be a demonstration. A test of strength. If you can prove yourself, he shrugged, you might win them over. And if I can't? Then we fight. Zane's smile turned feral. I'm good at fighting. As evening approached, Elena dressed in clothes Damon had brought: dark jeans, a white shirt, a leather jacket that smelled like him. Simple. Strong. Not trying to be something she wasn't. The full moon rose as they made their way to the pack gathering grounds. Elena could feel dozens of wolves ahead, their energy crackling through the forest. Fear and curiosity and hostility mixed together in a toxic brew. I'm with you, Damon murmured, his hand tight around hers. Every step. The gathering grounds opened before them, a massive clearing ringed by ancient trees. Wolves in human form stood in clusters, all eyes turning as Damon and Elena emerged from the tree line. The silence was deafening. Elena kept her chin up, her spine straight. She let the silver flame glow faintly beneath her skin, not threatening but impossible to miss. Announcing what she was. Marcus stood at the center of the clearing, flanked by 6 council members. His expression was triumphant, like he'd already won. Alpha Damon, he called out, his voice carrying across the gathering. You've chosen to bring her. Good. Let the pack see what you would bind yourself to. Watch your tone, counselor. Damon's power rolled across the clearing. You're addressing your Luna. Muttering rippled through the assembled wolves. Luna. The title carried weight, promise, protection. But it also carried expectation. And Elena could feel the doubt radiating from nearly every wolf present. A Luna must be worthy, Marcus continued. Must prove herself capable of standing beside the alpha. Of protecting the pack. His smile was cruel. Shall we test her then? See if this outcast has the strength to lead. Name your test, Damon growled. Combat. Marcus gestured, and 3 wolves stepped forward, all warriors, all battle-scarred and massive. If she can stand against our best fighters without using her cursed flame, then we'll acknowledge her claim. Elena's blood went cold. Hand-to-hand combat against trained warriors? Without her power? She'd lose. They had to know she'd lose. That's not a test, that's an execution, Zane spat. It's fair. Any Luna should be able to defend herself. Marcus's eyes gleamed. Unless she's too weak? Too afraid? Perhaps the mighty Mufuri is nothing without her fire. The taunt landed like a slap. Elena felt the silver flame surge in response to her anger, but she forced it down. If she used her power now, they'd say she was too dangerous. Too unpredictable. But if she fought without it and lost, they'd say she was too weak. There was no winning scenario here. She doesn't have to do this, Damon said, turning to her. We can. I'll fight. The words came out steady. Strong. Elena looked at Marcus and let him see the fire in her eyes. But when I win, the challenge is over. You accept me as Luna, and we move forward. Agreed. Marcus's smile widened. Agreed. Though I doubt you'll need to worry about winning. The 3 warriors stepped forward. Elena moved to the center of the clearing, rolling her shoulders, trying to remember every dirty trick she'd learned surviving on the streets. She wasn't trained. Wasn't a fighter. But she was fast, and she was desperate, and she had 3 years of suppressed rage fueling her. The first warrior lunged. Elena dodged, using his momentum against him. She landed a kick to his knee that made him stumble. The second warrior was on her immediately, his fist connecting with her ribs. Pain exploded through her chest, but she twisted away, using her smaller size to her advantage. They were toying with her. She could see it in their faces. pulling their punches just enough to prolong the fight, to humiliate her in front of the pack. The third warrior grabbed her from behind, pinning her arms. The first drove his fist into her stomach, doubling her over. She heard Damon roar with rage, felt him try to intervene, but other wolves held him back. Pack law. The challenge had been accepted. It had to play out. Blood filled Elena's mouth. Her ribs were cracked. Her vision swam. But she didn't give up. Didn't surrender. She fought like the survivor she was, landing blows when she could, taking punishment when she couldn't. Finally, inevitably, they drove her to her knees. One warrior's hand fisted in her hair, forcing her head back, exposing her throat in the ultimate gesture of submission. Yield, he commanded. Elena looked across the clearing and found Damon. His face was a mask of fury and pain, and she could feel the mate bond screaming at him to save her. But if he interfered now, Marcus would call it proof that she was weak, that she needed the alpha's protection. So Elena made a choice. She let the silver flame go. It exploded from her like a supernova, throwing all three warriors across the clearing. Power roared through the gathering, making every wolf drop to their knees. Not in submission, in awe, in terror, in recognition of something far older and more powerful than any of them had imagined. Elena rose to her feet, wreathed in silver fire that didn't burn, that healed her wounds as it flowed over her skin. Her eyes blazed with light as she looked at Marcus. You wanted to see my power? Her voice echoed with layered tones. Here it is. I am Wolfheart, guardian, protector, and I am done playing by your rules. She turned to the assembled pack, and the flames spread outward, touching each wolf gently, showing them glimpses of what was coming. The void, the darkness, the threat that would consume them all if they didn't stand united. Gasps and cries rippled through the crowd. Some wolves fell to their knees in reverence. Others backed away in fear. But they all understood now what she was, why she was here. Elena pulled the flame back into herself, her body shaking with exhaustion. I am your Luna, whether you like it or not. And when the darkness comes, you'll be grateful I'm here. Silence. Then, from the edge of the clearing, one voice rang out. Luna. It was Zane, fist over his heart in the traditional gesture of loyalty. Others joined him. Young wolves mostly, but some older ones too. Luna. 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 Not everyone. Not even close to everyone. But enough. Enough to shift the balance of power. Marcus's face was twisted with rage. This proves nothing. She's dangerous. Unstable. She'll bring destruction too. Enough. A new voice cut through the gathering. Female. Powerful. An older woman stepped from the crowd, her silver hair gleaming in the moonlight. She wore robes marked with council symbols, but her bearing was different from Marcus's. Regal. Wise. I am Elder Nora, First Counselor. And I have seen enough. She approached Elena, studying her with ancient eyes. Then, slowly, she knelt. The Wolfheart has returned. The Guardian awakens. We would be fools not to welcome her. The gesture sent shockwaves through the pack. If the first counselor accepted Elena, tradition demanded the others follow. Marcus sputtered. Nora, you can't. I can. And I do. Nora rose and turned to face him. Your challenge is over, Marcus. The Luna has proven herself. Accept it, or take your followers and leave our pack. The ultimatum hung in the air. For a moment, Elena thought Marcus would fight, would refuse. But then she saw it, the calculation in his eyes. He was outnumbered, outmaneuvered. He'd lost. This isn't over, he said quietly, looking at Elena with pure hatred. You may have won tonight, but the darkness you spoke of? When it comes, it'll be your fault. You'll bring destruction to everything you touch, just like your ancestors did. Then he turned and stalked away, 6 loyal wolves following. The rest of the pack remained, uncertain but present. Damon was at Elena's side immediately, his arms around her, checking her for injuries. Are you okay? Gods, Elena, I thought. I'm fine. She leaned into him, exhausted. Is it always going to be like this? Probably. His laugh was shaky. But you were incredible. Terrifying and incredible. Is that good? That's perfect. He kissed her temple. You're perfect. Elder Nora approached them, her expression thoughtful. The vision you showed us. The void. Is it truly returning? Yes. Elena met her eyes. And I don't know when or how to stop it. But I know I'm meant to try. Then we'll help you prepare. Nora glanced at Damon. All of us. The pack stands with its Luna. Even those who fear her. It wasn't the triumphant victory Elena had imagined. Half the pack still looked at her with suspicion. Marcus's parting words echoed in her mind. But it was a start. A foundation to build on. As the pack slowly dispersed, Damon held her close. Let's go home. Home. The words settled into Elena's chest, warm and right. She had a home. A pack. A mate who looked at her like she hung the moon. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was hers. And she would fight to keep it. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of training, of learning pack dynamics, of Elena slowly building relationships with wolves who'd initially feared her. Zane became a genuine friend, his easy humor helping her navigate the complex social hierarchies. Elder Nora taught her about pack history and the ancient laws that governed their kind. And Damon. Damon was her constant. Her anchor. Her home. They still hadn't completed the mating bond. Elena wanted to, gods, how she wanted to, but something held her back. Some whisper of intuition that said to wait. That the timing wasn't right yet. Damon never pushed. Just held her every night, their bodies pressed together, the promise of forever hanging between them like starlight. On the night everything changed, Elena was deep in the Codex, studying passages about the void. The entity that had nearly destroyed the wolf packs 3 centuries ago. According to the ancient text, it wasn't just a creature, it was hunger given form. It fed on pack bonds, on the magic that connected wolves to each other and to the moon. And once it consumed enough, it would spread, corrupting entire packs from within. The signs of its awakening were clear. Wolves going feral for no reason, pack bonds fraying, mysterious illnesses that no healer could cure. And Elena had started hearing reports of all 3 in nearby territories. It was coming. Soon. A howl split the night. Not a normal howl, this one was filled with terror and pain. Elena was on her feet immediately, Damon right behind her. They burst from the pack house to find wolves pouring from their homes, all looking toward the northern border, where black smoke was rising into the moonlit sky. What is that? Someone whispered. Elena's blood went cold. She'd seen that smoke in the Codex. In the visions. It's the void. It's here. Damon's eyes blazed amber. Everyone to the sacred grounds. Now. Fighters to the northern border. We need to slow it down. The pack exploded into motion. But Elena stood frozen, staring at the darkness spreading across their territory like a living thing. It moved wrong, flowed wrong, existed in a way that hurt to look at. This was what her ancestors had died fighting. This was what she was meant to stand against. Elena. Damon's hands framed her face, forcing her to look at him. I need you to stay at the sacred grounds with the elders and the young. Protect them if it breaks through our defenses. No. The word came out fierce. This is my fight, Damon. I'm Mufuri. I'm the guardian. You have to survive. His voice cracked. Please, Elena. I can't lose you. Not now. Not when I finally found you. And I can't lose you. She grabbed his shirt, pulling him close. But this thing, it feeds on separation. On fear. On wolves trying to fight it alone. She'd read it in the Codex, understood it in her bones. The only way to stop it is together. All of us. United. Understanding dawned in his eyes. The pack bond. You want to use the pack bond against it. Not just use it. Amplify it. Channel it through me. Elena's hands began to glow with silver flame. Mufuri wolves could share their power, remember? Make the bonds between pack members stronger. If I can do that, if I can connect everyone together through the flame. She looked at him, desperate for him to understand. We might have a chance. That kind of magic could kill you. The strain will kill me if I don't try. We don't have time to argue. She kissed him hard, pouring everything she felt into it. 3 years of loneliness ending in 2 weeks of connection. A lifetime of love compressed into a single moment. I need you to trust me. I do. His forehead pressed to hers. I trust you with everything. Just promise me you'll come back. I promise. A lie, maybe, but a necessary one. Now go. Rally the pack. Bring them to the northern border. I need everyone together. Damon kissed her once more, then shifted and ran, his alpha howl summoning the pack. Elena turned toward the spreading darkness and began walking. The codex had appeared in her hands, flipping open to the pages she needed. The ritual that would let her channel pack bonds. That would turn individual wolves into a collective force. It required one thing. One terrible, beautiful thing. She had to complete the mating bond. Had to tie herself to Damon so completely that their connection became the anchor for everyone else's. Elena reached the northern border as the darkness crashed against a hastily erected wall of fighting wolves. She saw warriors being thrown back, their bodies smoking where the void had touched them. Saw the terror in their eyes as they realized their claws and teeth were useless against this enemy. Fall back, she commanded, her voice amplified by magic. Everyone fall back to me. The wolves obeyed, scrambling away from the advancing darkness. Damon stood at the center of the retreating line, his alpha presence holding them together. When he saw Elena, relief and fear warred in his expression. The pack formed a semicircle around her, dozens of wolves in human and wolf form, all looking to her for salvation. Even the ones who'd feared her. Even the ones who'd wanted her gone. I need you to trust me, Elena said, addressing them all. What I'm about to do will feel strange. Intense. But you have to hold on. You have to stay connected no matter what. What are you planning? Elder Nora demanded. I'm going to bind us together. All of us. Through the silver flame. Through pack magic that hasn't been used in 300 years. Elena looked at Damon. But first, I need my mate. Understanding and desire and terror flashed across his face. He moved to her side without hesitation. I'm here. The mating bond has to be complete. Fully sealed. No holding back. No hesitation. Her hands trembled as she reached for him. It's the only way to create a connection strong enough to channel through. Then let's do it. Damon pulled her against him, his mouth claiming hers in a kiss that was promise and possession and love all wrapped together. The partial bond between them flared to life, demanding completion. Demanding they become one in every way that mattered. Elena let go of every reservation. Every fear. She opened herself completely to him. Body, mind, soul. Felt him do the same. The mate bond snapped into place with the force of a breaking dam, flooding them both with sensation so intense it drove them to their knees. Power roared through Elena. Not just hers, Damon's too. Alpha strength and dominance mixing with Fury flame. The combination was explosive, intoxicating, overwhelming. The silver fire erupted from her body in a column of light that reached toward the moon itself. No! Elena gasped, her hands outstretched toward the pack. Everyone, give me your pack bonds. Let me connect you. The wolves hesitated for only a heartbeat. Then, one by one, they opened themselves to her. Let the silver flame touch them. Let it flow through the bonds that connected pack member to pack member, weaving them together into something bigger. Stronger. Elena was the center of the web. Every wolf's connection ran through her, amplified by the Fury power singing in her veins. She could feel all of them, their fears, their hopes, their determination to protect their home. And she wove those feelings together, forging them into armor, into weapons. Into power that the void couldn't consume because it was based on connection instead of isolation. The darkness reached the line of wolves and recoiled. The pack bonds, channeled through silver flame, burned it. Hurt it. Drove it back. Now we push. Damon roared, his voice carrying his alpha command. Together. As one, the pack surged forward. Not as individual wolves, but as a single entity. Connected through Elena. Through the silver flame. Through bonds that went deeper than blood or territory or tradition. The void screamed, a sound that existed more in the mind than in the air. It lashed out, trying to separate them. Trying to break the connections holding them together. But Elena held firm. Held them all together through sheer force of will and Mu Fury magic. She could see its shape now. Vast and writhing and hungry. Could see the corruption it wanted to spread. But she could also see its weakness. It fed on division. On fear. On wolves who stood alone. And they weren't alone anymore. Together. Elena's voice rang across the battlefield, layered with power. We stand together. We fight together. We are pack. The silver flame exploded outward from the connected wolves in a wave that hit the void like a physical force. The entity shrieked and thrashed, but it couldn't advance. Couldn't consume what was united against it. Elena pulled deeper from the Codex's knowledge, from the memories of her ancestors who'd faced this enemy before. She knew what had to be done. Knew what it would cost. To seal the void away again, to buy the world another 300 years of safety, someone had to become the anchor. Someone had to tie their life force to the seal, maintaining it until they died. Her ancestors had chosen death. Had sacrificed themselves to save everyone else. But Elena was smarter than that. Or maybe just more selfish. Because she'd found something worth living for. Something worth fighting for. And she refused to give it up. So she did something her ancestors never could. She distributed the cost. Instead of one wolf anchoring the seal, she spread it across the entire pack. Every wolf connected through her would share the burden of maintaining it. They'd all live slightly shorter lives, maybe a year, maybe 5, but they'd all survive. They'd all have futures. She just needed them to agree. I can seal it, she shouted over the chaos. But it requires a sacrifice. A year of life from each of you. Maybe more. I need your consent. I need you to choose. For a heartbeat, silence. Then Zane's voice rang out. Take it. Take whatever you need. Agreed. Elder Nora called. Luna. 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 The chant rose from dozens of throats. Permission given. Choice made freely. Elena wove their consent into the spell, into the magic crackling through the web of connections. She drew on everyone's life force, just a thread from each, barely noticeable but cumulatively massive. And she channeled it all into a binding so powerful that the void had no choice but to retreat. The darkness screamed one final time as Elena drove it back. Back through the breach it had created. Back into the prison that had held it for centuries. And then, with every ounce of power she possessed, she sealed the rift. The silver flame blazed white-hot, burning the very air. Reality itself seemed to bend around the point where the void had entered their world. And then, with a sound like a door slamming shut, it was gone. The void was sealed. The pack was safe. And Elena was still alive. She collapsed immediately, the connection severing as she lost consciousness. But not before she felt Damon catch her, his arms strong and sure around her. Not before she heard him whisper, I've got you. I've got you. You're safe. Then darkness claimed her. But it was normal darkness. The darkness of exhaustion and victory and a battle won. Not the void. Never again the void. She'd done it. They'd done it. Together. Elena woke to morning sunlight and the feeling of being watched. She opened her eyes to find Damon sitting beside the bed, his hand wrapped around hers, his expression a mixture of exhaustion and relief. You're awake, he breathed. Thank gods, you're awake. How long? Her voice was rough from disuse. 2 days. You've been unconscious for 2 days. His thumb stroked across her knuckles. Nora said it was the strain of channeling that much power. That you'd wake up when your body had healed enough. Elena sat up slowly, taking stock. Her body ached, but it was a good ache. The ache of muscles used hard and healing clean. The pack? Alive. All of them. Some injuries from the initial attack, but everyone survived. Damon's eyes shone with pride and love. You saved us, Elena. You saved everyone. We saved everyone, she corrected. It only worked because they trusted me. Because they chose to stand together. They chose to follow their Luna. He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles. And now the whole territory knows what you did. Words spreading to other packs. The Mufuri who sealed the void. Who gave everything to protect wolves who'd initially rejected her. Elena's cheeks heated. I didn't do it for glory. I did it because it was right. I know. His smile was soft. That's why they love you now. Why even the wolves who feared you are pledging loyalty. He paused, his expression growing serious. Marcus came back. Asked to rejoin the pack. Said he was wrong about you. Wrong about everything. And you said? That it was your decision. Your Luna. The pack's acceptance or rejection is your call now. The power in that statement settled over Elena like a mantle. She was Luna. Not just Damon's mate. Not just a Mufuri with power. But a leader in her own right. Someone whose choices mattered. Whose voice carried weight. Give him a probationary period, she decided. 6 months. He proves his loyalty, he stays. He causes trouble, he's out permanently. Damon nodded. Fair. And fitting. He pulled her into his arms, holding her close. I thought I lost you. When you collapsed, when you wouldn't wake up. Elena, I've never been so terrified in my life. I promised I'd come back. She buried her face in his neck, breathing in his scent. I always keep my promises. I know. But I'm still not letting you out of my sight for at least a month. His arms tightened around her. Possibly longer. Possibly forever. Elena laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. I can live with that. They stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other. Two wolves who'd been broken and alone, now whole and together. The mate bond hummed between them, fully sealed and unshakable. Finally, Damon pulled back enough to look at her. There's something else. Something the Codex revealed after you sealed the void. Unease prickled down Elena's spine. What? The seal won't last forever. 300 years, maybe less. The void will try to break free again. And when it does, he hesitated. Your children will have to face it. Your bloodline will carry the responsibility of guarding against it. Generation after generation. Children. The word hung between them, heavy with implication. Elena's hand drifted to her stomach unconsciously. So this isn't over. It's just paused. Yes, but it also means your power, your legacy, will continue. That there will be Mufuri guardians for as long as the void exists. He cupped her face gently. If you want children. If you want that future. No pressure. No expectations. Just possibility. Elena thought about it. About tiny wolves with silver flames dancing in their palms. About raising them strong and confident instead of afraid. About teaching them that their power was a gift, not a curse. About building a family with the alpha who'd chosen her when the world turned away. I want that, she whispered. Someday. Not now, but someday. I want a future with you. Want to build something beautiful from all this pain. Then we will. Damon kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. We'll build a life. A pack. A legacy. Together. Outside the window, Elena could hear the pack moving about their day. Training. Laughing. Living. All of them bound together by the magic she'd woven. All of them carrying a piece of her flame in their hearts. She'd been cast out. Rejected. Called cursed and dangerous and unnatural. She'd spent 3 years running and hiding and believing she deserved to be alone. But she'd been wrong. She wasn't cursed. She was blessed. Chosen. Powerful in ways that went beyond the silver flame. Because she'd learned that true strength wasn't about standing alone, it was about knowing when to reach out. When to trust. When to let people in. And she'd found an alpha who saw her. Really saw her. Who loved her not despite her power but because of it. Who looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. What are you thinking? Damon asked, watching her with those amber eyes that saw straight into her soul. I'm thinking. Elena smiled, and it was real and bright and full of hope. I'm thinking I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. For the first time in my life, I'm home. You are. He pressed his lips to her temple. You're home. You're safe. You're loved. And nothing will ever change that. Elena closed her eyes and let herself believe it. Let herself sink into the certainty of his words. She was Mufuri. She was Luna. She was Elena, the girl who'd survived everything and come out stronger. And her story wasn't over. It was just beginning. The darkness would return someday. But when it did, she'd be ready. They'd all be ready. Because she'd shown them what was possible when wolves stood united. When fear gave way to trust. When outcasts became leaders. The world had tried to break her. Tried to convince her she was too much. Too dangerous. Too different. But they'd been wrong. She was exactly enough. Exactly right. Exactly what the world needed, even if it hadn't known it was waiting for her. And that was the most powerful magic of all. Underscore 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 underscore. Closing. So let me ask you something. Would you have chosen her side? Would you have stood with the cursed outcast when your entire pack told you to reject her? Would you have opened yourself to the silver flame, knowing it could burn you? Knowing it came from a bloodline that terrified even the bravest wolves? Or would you have been like Marcus? Like the Blackthorn pack? Like all those who turned away because her power made them uncomfortable? Because accepting her meant questioning everything they thought they knew about strength and leadership and what it meant to be pack? Elena didn't ask to be Mufuri. Didn't ask to carry the weight of prophecy and destiny on her shoulders. She was just a girl trying to survive in a world that rejected her for being different. For being more. But she rose anyway. Claimed her power anyway. Saved everyone anyway. Because that's what guardians do. They protect. Even when no one believes in them. Even when standing alone feels easier than standing together. And Damon? He saw past the fear and the flame to the woman underneath. Chose her when choosing her cost him everything. Stood beside her when the darkness came, not because pack law demanded it, but because love required it. Their story could have ended in tragedy. In rejection and isolation and two souls broken by a world too afraid to accept them. But instead, it became something beautiful. Something powerful. Something that proves that sometimes the people we're taught to fear are exactly the ones we need to save us. Is Elena a hero? Or just a girl cursed with too much fire and too much heart? Maybe she's both. Maybe that's the point. If this story lit something inside you, if Elena's pain echoed your own, if Damon's loyalty made you believe in love again, if the silver flame sparked something wild and fierce in your chest, then subscribe to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. Because here, we tell tales that burn. Stories about outcasts who become leaders. About curses that turn out to be blessings. About finding home in the most unexpected places and love in the most impossible circumstances. This isn't the end of Elena and Damon's story. It's the beginning. There's darkness still sleeping. Prophecies still unfolding. Children who'll carry silver flame in their veins and fight battles their mother can't imagine yet. And you'll want to be here when those stories begin. When the Moon Fury bloodline continues. When new guardians rise to face new threats. When love and power and destiny collide again and again in ways that will leave you breathless. So hit that subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. Join us in the Wolfheart community where outcasts are welcomed, power is celebrated, and every story reminds you that you're stronger than you think. Braver than you believe. More powerful than the world wants you to know. Because here, we don't run from the flame. We dance in it. Welcome to the pack. Welcome home. Welcome to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories, where every tale leaves a mark on your soul and every character teaches you something about yourself. Elena chose to stand, to fight, to believe she was worth saving. Now it's your turn. Choose to stay. Choose to believe. Choose to let these stories change you the way they've already changed so many others. The next chapter is waiting. And, trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when the full moon rises and the silver flame burns brightest. Until next time, may you find your own alpha in the darkness. May you claim your own power without apology. And may you always remember that being different isn't a curse, it's your greatest strength. This is Cindy's Wolfheart Stories, where legends are born and love conquers all. Subscribe and let the magic begin.